Hey, I've been seeing you sit in the audio channel for a while, but I was trying to finish up that YouTube video before I hopped in.
Oh, yeah, the one about, the 10 minutes on the maxed out Mac Pro.
Like 8 minutes and then 7 minutes on keyboards.
Oh, brutal, hey? Is he trying to sell them or what? Or should we say that? Should we say
it sounded like
yeah?
he got like a review sample or something.
Yeah. A bit iffy, that review. Didn't find it altogether entertaining, really, compared to some of the reviews I've watched. I'm not really sure why it's at the top of the subreddit.
Yeah, I agree. There was... I mean, it was very much just reading the spec sheet, which I'm never a fan of.
Yeah. What's the YouTube channel?
Let me see. It's not someone I've ever heard of before. Infinity Labs?
Infinity Labs.
About 20,000 subscribers.
20,000?
Yeah.
It's not a lot.
Respectable number. I mean, it's more than I have.
I think it's more than most people have, but still there are reviewers with millions of subscribers also reviewing the Mac Pro. I'd say I think like some of the top YouTubers would have a maxed out Mac Pro as well.
All the YouTubers I've seen so far, even the ones with millions of subscribers, were sent review units by Apple or bought them themselves. But in either case, none of them got the completely maxed out configuration.
All right. So that could be the difference. I think
Apple was sending out like 300 gigs of RAM and stuff, and this guy got the 1.5 terabytes. And
all right. And he had four
apparently 20,000
graphic cards as well.
Right. Yeah. He had the two dual cards. So apparently 20,000 subscribers will get you a $52,000 computer, though. So can't complain about that.
Man, we've got to move this podcast onto YouTube, I'd say.
We just set some cameras up and record ourselves while we're talking.
Yeah, it's got to make for some riveting watching.
I mean, there are channels that do that. Usually they're in the same room, though, and I think there's maybe a little bit more playing off each other in that case.
Yeah. The good thing about audio is it's very easy to cut out any like silences that, because there's a little bit of latency as well between Australia and North America. It's easy to cut them out. Right. I think with a video, it's probably not quite so easy.
Yeah, the listeners never have to know that we're so awkward and there's just like 3-minute pauses in our conversation because we don't know what to say to each other.
Yeah, I'm sitting here twiddling my thumbs like, is he going to talk or should I talk next? Well, the truth's out there now, so we may as well move to video. Watch the real money roll in.
I'd actually have to put clothes on for that.
Oh, yeah?
I mean...
Or not?
Real... I don't think anyone wants to see me in my pajamas.
Oh, pajamas are clothes. What's wrong with that?
Sorry, did I just dash your hopes, James?
Sounded like it, didn't it? All right, let's move on before that mental picture really ingrains itself in my head. Well, Happy New Year and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. You too. Did you have a good holiday?
Yeah, I just got back from about a 6.5 hour away drive holiday. That was worded a bit weirdly, yeah. So I went up north from where I am now, about 6.5 hours, a place called Kalbarri in Western Australia. My in-laws are still here, so packed five of us into a car and drove up there, and it was pretty idyllic.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how long are the in-laws staying with you guys?
About a month total, and they'll be gone in a week today, so on the home stretch.
Nice. So you got a kind of an uncomfortable recording situation again today then?
I've kicked them out of the house, so... uncomfortable as in I'm standing. Yeah, I would normally be sitting down, but my desk is packed away still, so I've got a chest of drawers stacked with what looks like 7 hardcover Harry Potter novels, and then my microphone sitting on top of it all to be roughly the height of my mouth.
Nice.
Yep. And what about you?
My holidays are pretty quiet. I drove up to visit my parents for Christmas. And we stayed there just for 2 days and then came back. They only live about 2 hours away from me. They're very funny though, because I came up on Christmas Eve and we spent the day with them, and we're there for Christmas morning. And then in the afternoon, started packing the kids up and leaving. Like, oh, you're leaving? We thought you were going to stay for like the next 4 or 5 days. Like, well, we can stay if you want. We don't have any plans. Like, well, we're going back to work tomorrow, so there's not really a reason for you to stay. It's like, okay.
Right.
So you weren't planning on me staying.
So it was kind of an empty offer, was it?
I guess.
Parents.
So, but I've actually been off work since Christmas Eve. I'm going back tomorrow, so it's been kind of a nice break for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds good. At this point, I don't even know what work is. It's been so long since I sat down to do some.
Yeah. Are you near or at all affected by all the wildfires I've been reading about out there?
There was one that was kind of close, like say maybe 45 minutes from where I am, and we actually drove through the burnt area. I mean, this particular fire was over about 2 weeks ago, I think. But we drove through the affected area on the way up north and just saw the extent of it. And but I think the majority of them tend to be over east, on the other side of the country.
Okay.
Yeah. Certainly the most devastating ones have been over there that I've seen on the news.
Yeah, seems like some scary stuff's been going out there. Maybe this year more than normal, because I've been seeing a lot more about it.
Yeah, definitely seems to be more than normal. So many houses have been lost. A few lives have been lost as well. Some pretty terrifying video from inside fire trucks where they've just been caught in a little inferno or whatever it's called, where it suddenly gusts up really hard, and then they,
oh right,
yeah, stuck in the truck. That must be terrifying.
I've been seeing a lot of the pictures of people posting where the whole sky is just blood red, and it looks terrifying.
Yeah. Well, the day my in-laws landed was, I think, just after the fire here was put out, and the entire city smelled like smoke, and the sky was like this kind of tan red color. Welcome to Australia. We're on fire.
Is it their first time coming to visit?
One of them, yeah. Yasmin's dad. That's his first time here.
It's a good first impression.
Yep. I had a little mini topic just because I was traveling. I was kind of forced to use the hotspot feature for the first time in a long time, I think. Do you use it much? Because it seems to have changed a little bit in iOS 13, mostly for the better as well.
I probably use it once every couple months if I need internet on my iPad on the go, but it's not a very regular thing for me. Yeah,
me neither. And this could even be like an iOS 12 thing. I don't even know. But the features I've noticed is there's now this option that it just, if it doesn't have a connection, it'll automatically join a hotspot nearby if you have it available. You don't have to go into the Wi-Fi menu. Saying that, this feature doesn't really work at the moment, but it's good to see it's there, and there's a promise of it working in the future. But say if you just jumped on your iPad and it had no connection, but your phone was nearby, there's no more going into settings, Wi-Fi, wait for it to show up and then tap on it. It'll just jump on it automatically, which is pretty cool, although it doesn't really work on the iPad. But on the watch, it actually does work. Well, on the watch, it actually prompts you first. It doesn't do it 100% automatically. But a few times, I just went out with my watch and nothing else. It actually works between family members because Yasmin had her phone with her, and then just out of the blue, my watch would pop up and say, "Oh, do you want to connect to Yasmin's iPhone's hotspot?" Which is, yeah, pretty cool.
That is cool.
And the other improvement I've noticed is that when you do connect to a hotspot, it used to be that when you locked your iPad, it would pretty aggressively turn off the hotspot and disconnect. So every time you went back onto it, you would have to go through the rigmarole of connecting. But yesterday I went on a 4-hour drive because I was on my way back home, and I was locking and unlocking my iPad the entire way, and it was always connected to the hotspot. I connected once when I got in the car and never had to do it again. So 2 very welcome improvements to hotspot.
Yeah, Apple's been really good about slowly improving just the general hotspot experience. I still think it's just groundbreaking that you can turn on the hotspot on one device from another device.
Yeah, that was such a welcome addition.
So much easier.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all if they have a a low power management mode or something where it keeps the hotspot on but doesn't waste your battery quite as much, so they can pull that off now.
Yeah, at first I thought it was working throughout the locks and unlocks because my phone was plugged into power. But then at the end of the trip, I realized I'd actually been connected to Yasmin's hotspot the entire time, and that was just sitting on the dash. And she didn't complain about any battery issues, so I'm not thinking that it really used too much of her battery.
I thought your iPad had cellular.
It does have cellular, but what happened? My telco stopped offering the data sharing plans on their consumer line of plans, annoyingly. So I can no longer just have 2 SIM cards on my single plan. And it meant it's actually quite a lot of money to now have a SIM card in the iPad. Unless I was to move on to the more expensive business line of their plan.
So it's not possible to have a data-only device? You have to basically get a second SIM with a new phone number for your iPad?
No, I could have a data-only device, but I'm just... what I meant was it's just really expensive now, whereas before it was basically nothing to have my iPad also hooked up to the data. But now it's...
Okay.
It's gone from something like $5 a month to $30+ a month minimum if I wanted my iPad on. Wow. And with the improvements with hotspot, well, it's not really a hassle just to hotspot from now on, I think. Unless they come back with that data sharing plan. Because it's really just a convenience thing.
Right.
And $5 a month for a bit of convenience I would pay, but $30+, not really.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think mine right now it's an extra $10 a month per device I want to add. And I've never felt a need to buy a cellular iPad, pay extra for that, and then have a monthly fee versus just turning a hotspot on when I need it. That's always worked fine. So it does apply to cellular Apple Watch, though, if I wanted to use the cellular features on there. It's an extra $10 a month as well.
Yeah, and then you get hit by taxes and things as well, don't you, on top of that $10?
Yeah, there'd be, 7% of that $10.
Ah, okay. I thought I read something where it was like $10, but then depending on the state you're in, you could be up to like $17, $18, $19 a month just for the Apple Watch Cellular.
Oh, I must not be in one of those states.
Yeah, lucky. Whereas here, it's just an easy $5 flat fee. And that's Australian, so we're talking, like $3.50 maybe, American dollars a month.
That's very reasonable.
Yeah.
I could see myself getting cellular versions of everything. For,
that's just like the watch, though.
Right. You know what I'm surprised by is that Apple's never released a MacBook Pro with like a LTE antenna in it.
Yeah, there's certainly a group of people that would buy that.
And they've definitely been experimenting with it for more than the last 10 years. There's 10-plus-year-old prototypes of MacBook Pros and even the PowerBooks with cellular antennas in them. They're like the 3G antennas back in the older ones, but there's actually like prototypes that have come up for sale on eBay with these antennas built in. So they've definitely been experimenting with them.
The only reasoning, well, there's probably a few reasons for it, but the main one I can think of is that macOS is just not optimized for like a low data mode thing. Apps on macOS expect to be able to pretty much use unlimited data. And that doesn't make for a good user experience if you're typically on a pretty like low data limit on a cellular plan. And say, Joe Blogs has transmission or something running in the background, and within 3 minutes it's gone through his entire monthly data quota because, he just didn't realize or whatever.
That's fair.
Back when hotspots were first becoming a thing, I was forever hearing stories from friends who, forgot to close uTorrent or whatever, and their entire monthly cellular data was gone within a matter of minutes.
Oh.
Yeah. Or actually, and even slightly before those days when cellular data wasn't shaped, like it wasn't slowed down after your limit, it was actually billed, incurred extra charges. I don't know if that's still a thing in North America, but that's basically gone here. You can't really get that anymore because so many people would tether and then rack up these enormous bills just because they didn't really understand that apps would use a heap of data in the background. Like, I mean, some people don't even know that when you browse the internet, it's like downloading data. Some people don't understand that as a concept. So you can see it's very easy for them to also just blow through small data limits very, very quickly, rack up huge bills in the old days at least, and therein lies a bad user experience.
That's fair. Yeah, I didn't think about it that way. And I guess for those that really need it, I mean, tethering is not a bad experience. So if you got a MacBook Pro on you, you probably got an iPhone or something as well.
Yeah, it's not a great experience though.
I mean, it'd be much better if it was just the seamless, connecting to LTE and you're done. But it's not a workaround I've been so frustrated with that I have ever felt the need to spend the extra money. So
yeah, it is kind of nice. I mean, kind of useful that I think I'm not sure if this feature exists on a Mac that it automatically tries to connect, but just to have that extra step of having to go in and connect, it means you know the feature's there. So it's kind of this little hurdle to get over to know it's there and then to use it. It might be like the threshold of people who also understand that using the internet downloads data. I don't know. Maybe.
Right.
The other reason I could say is that Apple just wants people to also have iPhones. Yeah.
Just because I think they'll sell more iPhones if they don't have a cellular MacBook?
Yeah, exactly.
I suppose that could be possible. If you want internet on the go on your MacBook Pro, you either have to buy an iPhone and get a seamless hotspot experience or buy like a mobile hotspot, and it's kind of a lot less convenient to use. Yeah.
Or like an Android hotspot, just less convenient. You don't get the whole Bluetooth waving hands saying like, look, here I am, connect to me. Right.
Did you see that I got your complaint kind of fixed in my Watch app update?
No. I haven't used your Watch app since first launch, sorry to say.
I wouldn't expect you to.
I don't actually have any use cases for hearing a particular note at a particular time.
Right. So in researching this, and the issue specifically was that when you're in silent mode, obviously you can't hear anything. Apple does not allow apps to have access to what the state of your system toggles are. There's no way to know that your watch is in silent mode without some kind of hacky workarounds, like playing an audio file and then seeing how long it took to play, and if it took 0 seconds, then you're probably in silent mode because it didn't actually play.
I've experimented with that before when I was trying to make an app that depended on making a noise.
But I do have, there is a toggle to ignore silent mode, which is what I ended up using instead.
Huh, okay, so let me just test it. My watch is on silent, of course. Works perfectly.
I also added a new color picker interface if you force touch on the screen.
Change pitch colors. Huh. Okay. Do I just pick it? Ah, nice. Now they're all yellow.
Mm-hmm.
In this update, the little UI seems to have shrunk slightly and it's no longer centered. If I was to nitpick.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'll have to take a look at that on it must have to do with your watch being a slightly smaller one than mine. It's hard to tell exactly what's going on.
Could be.
So it's smaller and off-center now.
Yeah, vertically it's at the bottom of the screen.
Ah, okay. It's hard to actually center UI on an Apple Watch because you have that title bar across the top with the title and then the time in the right corner. And when you're laying out an app, the viewfinder pretends like that title bar doesn't exist. So if you center everything according to that, the title bar kind of overlays part of it. So I kind of had to guess a little bit how much I need to shift things down for that to work.
Okay.
But it's been fun to play with. It's the first time I've ever published an app the quote-unquote correct way and not using like a command line tool that builds my iOS and Android versions and deploys them both simultaneously. So it's been kind of neat to see the official process.
Do you see yourself moving on to bigger and more feature-some apps as well?
I'd like to. I really enjoy mobile development. Just as as a concept, I guess. The fact that you can build something and then put it in the hands of millions of people, in the course of a night, as long as a review takes, that's really powerful to me, and there's not really any other way to get your code in that many hands. So I've always been a fan of the idea of just mobile development.
It's neat now that you can also just publish directly to the watch instead of having to have an iPhone counterpart as well.
Right. Although, as you've seen, and I've gotten other people commenting as well, the experience of trying to download an app for your watch from the phone is not great right now.
Oh man, what did that screenshot say? Wait, so what did I do? I tried to find it on the watch first, and I just couldn't find it for some reason. And then I went to I think maybe you sent me a direct link to it, which took on the phone. So I clicked on that. It took me to the regular App Store. And then clicked download, and it said in a prompt, only for Apple Watch was the title. Well, yep, I'm expecting that. But then it goes on to say, if the download doesn't start automatically, open the App Store on your watch, tap account, then tap purchased. What? So if it's like saying, oh, this probably won't work. So here's this kind of like really janky, lengthy workaround where you're going to be holding your wrist up for like at least a minute waiting for these stupid App Store screens to load until you can actually download the app, which is what you've already done, but it probably didn't work. So here's the workaround. Honestly, that's just, yeah. What did I say? It just works or something.
Yeah.
Slightly ridiculous.
Yeah, it seems very un-Apple, especially to list like a 4-step process in just a little pop-up notification and expect like regular users to remember everything they have to do just if the app didn't download correctly.
Yeah.
So.
And just to add, I had to follow those steps because it never appeared on my watch, so I had to go through the
Right,
process.
that's exactly the feedback I've gotten as well, is it just doesn't work if you try to download it from the phone.
Like maybe if I'd waited a few hours or something, it would have shown up, but yeah, not within 5-10 minutes at least.
Huh.
You still have a cough. You had a cough last show as well.
Tell me about it. I actually got over the cough, and this is a new cough.
Oh, good. Yeah, I could tell. It's got like a slightly different pitch to it.
I've been great for the entire couple weeks I've been off of work, and now that I'm going back to work tomorrow, I'm starting to get a bit of a cold. So I'm gonna be
well. If there's any time to get one,
yeah. I mean, I guess at least my vacation wasn't bad, but I'm going to have to go back to work and be extra miserable about it.
Luckily, the listeners won't have to hear it.
Is that difficult to edit out?
No, it's a piece of cake. Don't worry about it.
Okay. I try to make sure to like I lean over into my soundproof foam to cough, and I make sure you're in the middle of the statement, so hopefully I'm muted already anyway. And
yeah, exactly. As long as it's not during one of your sentences, then it's really easy to edit out. Like just 2 taps.
Okay.
Yeah, so don't worry.
Nice.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the new year. And the first request from the subreddit is that in 2020, Apple needs to change iPhone's call UI because robocalls are killing us, apparently. Now, for me personally, I don't have a problem anymore with robocalls ever since the new feature in iOS 13 where you can just silence unknown callers, where it sends them directly to voicemail. Like robocalls, spam calls, junk calls, basically no longer an issue for me. If I had to list my number one spam problem with the iPhone, it's just getting text messages from like where the sender ID is just a text instead of a number, so it's not possible to block them. But the actual call UI, I mean, 2 issues here. Whether you get spam calls and then what the call UI looks like, I guess. And, I mean, getting more spam calls and having a bad UI seems to be the root of this complaint from 9,705 Redditors, with 96% upvote ratio as well, which is quite high.
Right.
As for the call UI, though, I don't know. I mean, back to my point that some people don't even know that using the internet downloads things. Some people don't really see notifications when they pop down on the screen. I'm mostly talking about older people here just to lump them all in a big group. But I've seen people use their phone and just not see notifications. Like they just don't notice them at the top of the screen. So I'd hate for them to be missing calls just because of their obliviousness. But I guess having the option just to turn them into banners if the user wants would certainly be an improvement, especially people who play games, because being bumped out of a game due to a call, let alone a spam call, I can imagine is extremely annoying.
Right. Yeah, I think I'm almost in the exact same boat. The blocking unknown callers has fixed 99% of the problems I've had with spam calls. As far as a new UI, yeah, options are great. I think the bar looks really good on Android when you get a phone call. I think even if it was a full screen notification that you could just like still swipe up to dismiss or just not send directly to voicemail, I think would solve a lot of people's problems. That's like an issue I understood like 6 or 7 years ago when I was like a junior or senior in high school, and it's like, oh, my parents are calling, but I don't want them to think I send them to voicemail, but I also don't want to talk to my parents, so I'm going to sit here and wait for the call to finish ringing.
The truth hidden in this request is reared its ugly head.
Yeah, but it's like at this point, I'm not getting spam calls, so the only calls I am getting are from people that I would want to answer the phone for. I don't have that desire to ignore people like that anymore. So, yeah, I feel like this maybe is a solution that I would have asked for a long time ago, but it's not something that I'm super keen on now.
There is a trend of Apple solving these long-standing issues, in quotes, such as with the volume heads-up display recently. It's gone from that big overscreen overlay to the nice little thing on the side, which you can click and drag. As we learned a few shows ago, you can actually drag on that UI once it's popped up.
Right.
I've still never done that. But yeah, there is a trend of Apple solving these long-standing issues in the last few releases. So I can certainly see iOS 14 having this improvement. In fact, I'd probably put money on it having some sort of new option where it doesn't take over the screen.
Really?
I would put money on it.
I think what I would be most interested in is a redesign to the call interface on an iPad. Because I definitely don't need a call to take over my whole iPad screen. And if I'm on my iPad, I'm probably doing more legitimate work than I would be on my phone.
It's literally like a bigger problem
or something. Right. See, I would much rather a call be treated on on iPad OS like it's treated on Mac OS, where it is kind of just a pop-up in the corner or something like that. That's a bigger frustration to me than the phone interface.
I think that would look really good as well. So on the Mac, it looks kind of like just a regular notification, doesn't it? Although it's slightly bigger.
Right.
There's certainly room on the iPad for that. And even on the iPhone, something similar, just a banner on the top. Maybe it looks slightly different to a regular notification banner, just to make it more obvious, if Apple is so insistent that calls are still important in 2020.
Yeah. Who even gets phone calls anymore? Just turn off the phone part of your phone. That'll solve everything. So, yeah, it's a feature that I'm fine with having, but don't really care too much either way.
No, me neither. Are you going to take me up on the bet, though? Or yeah, any listeners?
Sure, why not?
Want to take me up on the bet?
I'll take the contrarian position of that and say that Apple won't bother switching the UI this year.
Oh yeah. What about putting some money on it? No,
$20.
$20.
$20.
All right, done. Virtual handshake.
All right. They did their big UI redesign-ish this year, so maybe we won't see much. I can't say this year anymore. It was last year now.
Last year, yeah.
So I don't know if we'll see much in that way this year. Maybe we'll see more just performance boosts.
Speaking of the new year, just very briefly, the Apple Watch still seems to have no concept of time zones, or I don't know, there seems to be like tons of time zone bugs, because when I woke up this morning, on the 2nd, I got the fireworks on my Apple Watch face. Like, what? You're so obviously designed in North America that you don't even realize that New Year's was like more than 24 hours ago.
Really?
Yeah.
But was the date otherwise correct on your watch?
What do you mean?
Like it had the fireworks, but like the date complication said January 2nd?
No, as in it is January 2nd right now. And I got the fireworks.
Right, okay.
Like I should have got them yesterday when I woke up.
Right. Very weird.
Yeah, but it's certainly not the first feature that like has this stupid like time zone conversion issues where it seems to be hard coded to like UTC minus 10 or whatever.
What else have you seen?
Put me on the spot. Whatever else have I seen? Like activity achievement type things where it's like on Earth Day you get like a special achievement, and Earth Day is like, I don't know, 8th of November, but if you did it on the 9th of November then you would get the achievement, not on the 8th. Changing between time zones, I guess it's a little bit different, but no, it's not really the same bug.
Did you see this in the past, or is it just because you have a North American Apple Watch now?
Oh, no, I've seen this since day 0, Apple Watch 0.
Okay. That's really odd that Apple wouldn't take time zones into account on a watch.
Yeah, there seems to be a specific group of people who just like are doing the like the special stuff, like the fireworks on New Year's or the Earth Day achievement or the December award or whatever you get. This little group of people doesn't understand that, time zones.
Speaking of birthdays, and this is very tangentially related, my Reddit cake day is Christmas Day.
So you signed up for Reddit on Christmas Day?
Yeah, in 2012. So I've been a Redditor for over 7 years, and I've never remembered a single cake day because I'm always in the middle of Christmas stuff.
Well, happy cake day for then.
Thanks.
7 years, wow, you're basically a newbie on Reddit.
Yeah, I know. I'm very late to the game. Although I was browsing Reddit for a couple years before I created an account and just never bothered signing up.
Okay.
So
fair enough.
I'm closer to 9 or 10 years on Reddit.
I'm at 10 years, but also this is my second Reddit account, so.
Uh-oh.
Woohoo. Back when I did a mass shift from my like high school username to my adult username.
Right.
Anyway.
I still need to do that. I still have the same username I've had for 15 years.
Another feature request from the Apple community, the r/Apple community. Apple needs to add a mark as unread feature to text messages. So this is submitted by Aonux. Actually, I didn't say who the last one was submitted by. That's because it was an actual article, a blog submitted. This one's a self-post. So many times I'll open a message and close it, only forget to reply later. Yep, I have to say I do that all the time.
Yep.
They're saying they're aware of force touch to preview messages. Yep, that's good for some of you, but not for everyone. Simple feature, needs to exist. Some suggestions in the thread as well, such as using the Siri feature to just, like when you're looking at a message thread, you can just say, Siri, remind me about this in blah. But of course that involves talking to your phone, like you can't do that without Siri.
Right.
I guess you could always turn on type to Siri. That's a bit of a workaround though. I mean, I was pretty happy with messages until I read all the comments, and then I started realizing that it's kind of lackluster when it comes to features. Like, there's no...
It's pretty bare bones.
It's very bare bones, isn't it? The last great update we got was like a piece of junk. It's like adding the App Store to messages.
Right.
Which I have to say has been a flop, although I do use like GIFs all the time. I guess that already existed in like alternative keyboards. Right. What else do I use? Nothing. If anything, it's annoying because it takes like 2 taps to get to photos sometimes, or I click on the wrong button to add a photo when I actually tap on the camera button, which I still do like 4 years later.
Yeah, there's definitely nothing that I use now that I didn't use in the past in the form of an alternative keyboard. There's no apps that I regularly use.
What else has been added? I mean, voice notes have been added, but they seem to be just so buggy.
Right. Yeah, I can't say that much has changed in the way of the Messages app ever.
And what are some of the feature requests from Redditors? Because there are a heap in there that made me realize how rough it was. Someone
to pin conversations to the top.
Yeah, pin conversations.
Most recent conversation.
Yeah, I'd always have Yasmin at the top, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Right now and send later. I might see myself using that.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about send later. In my mind, text messaging is such a... it's not instant messaging in my mind. If I send a text, I'm not expecting someone to get back to me immediately. So I don't mind sending it and not hearing back for a while. But I know some people feel the opposite about that.
The ability to quote messages, and that does exist in WhatsApp, and is very useful in group conversation because they very quickly get derailed. So to be able to reference the original thing that you're talking about, just to keep things back on topic, is useful.
That'd be nice. You know, a new feature in Messages that I do use pretty regularly is the tap backs. Reactions to messages.
100%, yeah, every day.
Yeah, that's probably the best thing they've added.
Mm-hmm, yep. I kind of like the new photo UI, photo options. Like when you send bulk photos, there's now the option to send it as like actual photos in the chat, or just to send like an iCloud album. That's pretty handy.
Right. Do you ever use the message effects?
The message effects. I use them at New Year's, so that's about it. You know, send with fireworks. I think that's one of the only reasons, the only times to use it.
Yeah, I use the ones that come automatically. Like if you send someone happy birthday, it automatically sends with balloons.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So,
and invisible ink is occasionally useful. Like when you want to say, like this is a spoiler, so only wipe it if you actually want to spoil whatever you're talking about.
Ooh, that's something I wanted to talk to you about too.
Servant?
No, I still haven't gotten to Servant.
Okay. Mandalorian?
But nope, I have not seen Mandalorian. But just to preface this, we can talk about it at the end of the show. I was listening back to some of our old episodes. I was listening to episode 2 of the podcast today. And we were talking about how The Last Jedi was written on a MacBook Air that was kept in a safe when it wasn't being used. Mm-hmm. And you were very disappointed that at that point none of the 4 of us were very into Star Wars enough to talk about it, and you really just wanted as an excuse to talk about Star Wars. But since then, I've watched every Star Wars movie, so maybe we can talk about it.
Since then, you've watched every Star Wars movie?
Well, not since listening to the podcast, but since 2 years ago when we had that show.
Yeah. That's amazing.
So I've seen every Star Wars movie, and I just saw the new one in theaters. And if you have too, then we can finally talk about Star Wars at the end of the show.
This is where I really let the team down because I still haven't seen it, but I do intend to this weekend. And just having been away for the last week and having the in-laws over, there's just been no time to watch it. Normally I'd be there on day 1, day 2, at least week 1.
Right.
So it's going to have to wait until the next show, unfortunately.
Okay, we'll save it for the next show then.
And between now and then, you should watch the entire Mandalorian.
There's so many TV series for Star Wars, though.
No, there aren't.
But
certainly none that are live action.
Right. There's a lot of cartoon ones that still add a lot to the canon of Star Wars.
Yeah, I don't bother with cartoons.
Clone Wars TV show.
But honestly,
well, if you
there are many good TV shows out there that I've kind of partway through, such as Servant, Morning Wars, C, For All Mankind. They've all taken a back seat to The Mandalorian.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. See, I've finished up the morning show and C. And man, the morning show especially gets really, really good in the last couple episodes.
So I've heard. Yeah, no, I haven't.
So, but okay.
All right, we'll have a topic dedicated to Star Wars next show.
Okay.
Apple Ink Supply in Japan makes mark with iPhone 11 Pro colors. So this is a bit of an unusual article. It's just talking about how there's an ink producer in Japan who supplies colors for iPhones. Like, you don't often see these like really component level news articles or like the source of where X or Y comes from. And typically, I think we would see maybe the source of news about the source of the camera supplier, the screen supplier, and that's really it. I mean, talk a bit about Taiwan Semiconductor, but the actual ink that goes into making the color of the iPhone, I don't think I've ever read anything about that. But yeah, these people, it's a Japanese company. It's been around for a long time. Thanks to them, we have green iPhones, and they seem to have been the supplier of color since, when was it? It was like a black ink that they started supplying. After 4 years of improvements in their quality control system, they were able to supply black for one of the iPhones. That was the best part about the article, I have to say, is that Apple kind of brought them on board, but it took them 4 years before their product was consistent enough to provide black for an iPhone.
There's a couple really interesting things that stand out to me in this article. The first one being that this company is only 160 people. So this is a very, very small company relative to Apple and Huawei and Samsung that they're working with. So it's really cool. They have this whole contract for all the colors for the Pro iPhone lineup. The other thing that really stood out to me is that Apple brought them and a bunch of other ink suppliers to talk in the middle of 2011, which would be right on the heels of them taking 8 months to get the white color right for the iPhone 4. So it sounded like they're pretty fed up with whoever they were working with and had every ink supplier come to California to demo their products to them. And then after 4 years, so in 2015, they finally started using Seiko ink, which is pretty cool to me.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you think that there's so much that goes into an iPhone. It must be insane. Every single component has probably a pretty big team behind it. And every team has got these like minute, no, not minute, but like insane quality standards to meet to be able to supply to Apple and then to put out, what is it, how many iPhones a year? Hundreds of millions.
I don't know. Right. So it's almost counterintuitive to me, and it's kind of eye-opening to maybe why we don't see very many color changes, especially in the Pro line of iPhones. In my mind, it's always been, just like pick from this swatch of colors. What colors do you want your devices to be? And like we want black and white, and that's it. But apparently it's much more complex than that to get new colors made and actually integrated into the new products. So,
yeah, first there's to come up with the color and to have it be, and then to have it be uniform across, like, I don't know how many millions of liters is required to cover all the iPhones.
Right.
Two probably insanely hard steps. And everyone says that hardware is hard, and you can see why when it comes to... It must be like infinitely harder when it comes to producing 100,000 uniform devices. 100 million uniform devices like the iPhone.
Right, yeah. So, and we also have this company to thank not only for the midnight green, but also the gold color that Apple uses as well, which I'm actually a really big fan of.
Now you have to ask, why aren't the colors uniform across generations? Such as... Because they're like, how many different shades of gold iPhone and Apple Watch?
Or how many shades of space gray have we seen?
Oh, yeah, that too.
Well, I think for a lot of that can be explained because it comes from different suppliers. Because Seiko pretty much only does the iPhones. So any space gray trackpad or Apple Watch is going to be a different color automatically because it's coming from someone else.
All right, good call.
But I wonder how much of that is inconsistency year to year with... I mean, I wouldn't say inconsistency because they're still manufacturing the old iPhones with the old colors as well. There's an overlap period. So it has to be on Apple, right? They have to decide they want a slightly different shade.
Maybe deliberate inconsistency, like, improved or made the workflow efficient in X way, and now the shade of it is different by 11% grey or whatever. Who knows?
Oh, yeah, maybe as well. So I miss the slate black color that the iPhone 5 came in. Nothing else has come close in my mind to that.
The iPhone 5, like the, what do you mean? Like the grey?
Slate.
Oh, the slate.
Yeah, slate. It was only the iPhone 5, and it was almost had like this bluish tint to it. I liked it a lot.
That's not the one on the iPhone SE, is it? Because that's what I'm looking at now.
No, SE is a space gray color. It's not slate.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I remember it.
So that was my very first iPhone, so I remember it pretty well.
Form factor to rule all form factors.
Man, and the lightest iPhone they ever made as well. It felt like a toy in your hand.
Speaking of form factors, apparently the iPad Pro 2020 is going to be the same form factor as the iPad Pro 2018. We didn't get an iPad Pro 2019, did we?
No, we didn't.
Yeah, so late 2018, no iPad Pro update in 2019, and apparently the same design in 2020, which I got to say I expected because it was a massive update late 2018. It went from like what we've had basically since the iPad 2, right? The second gen with kind of the...
probably closer to the iPad Air was a big redesign.
Oh, yeah, you're right. The iPad Air was, quite a lot different to the iPad 2, 3 and 4. And then that survived up until last year. And then we kind of got the iPhone 5 design, but in an iPad, where it's kind of squared corners. Doesn't have the chamfered edges, though. But I would see no reason for them to change it again because, I mean, the current design is really top-notch.
Yeah. Maybe short of them shrinking the bezels even more, there's nothing I would want to change. Actually, if I had one request, it'd be to get rid of the camera bump. But other than that, I'm very happy with the design.
I'm always cased on my iPad, so the camera bump's not really an issue for me. But speaking of cameras, the update that is rumoured or expected is that it's going to go for the 3-camera design, just like the iPhones. It seems to be like a slam dunk, like an easy win. Here's the new iPad Pro. It's basically the same, except you've got a camera update. So it's kind of like the iPad Pro S year, where you get all the smaller spec bumps instead of having a redesign, and you're happy with that for another 12 months or more if it's an iPad, really.
My big question is, how soon are we going to see this? Are we going to see this in the beginning of 2020 or the end? Because that'll have a big say on which processor ends up coming with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, March updates for iPads are certainly not unknown. Actually, they're semi-regular, you might say, even. Have we ever had a WWDC iPad update?
I mean, it used to be the case in like 2010, 2011, 2012 that the iPads got updates in the spring, and they got the new processors, so A4, A5. They got the processors first, and then that trickled down to the iPhones, either that summer or fall when they switched to the fall releases. But in the last 7 years, they've kind of switched that over where the iPhones get the processors first, and then the iPads get the X version of whatever the current processor is.
Right.
So depending on which release schedule they're going to keep with, we may or may not see, this year's processor, which might not matter because the X version of the processor is always so much faster anyway.
Yeah, doesn't it just have typically greater graphics capabilities because of the difference in screen size? That was my impression.
I think they may have added a CPU core or two in the past, but yeah, usually it's about doubling up the graphics performance.
If Apple's waiting until October or September, that's 2 years between iPad updates, which just seems like too long a time for them.
Well, it's 2 years between iPad Pro updates. We've seen other iPad updates and probably will see more.
Yeah, okay.
In the other range.
But letting the flagship lag behind for so long doesn't sound like a good sign, especially since iPad seems to be on an upward trajectory in terms of functionality, popularity, all that sort of stuff.
Right.
I don't know. If I was putting money on it again, just splashing out money left, right, and center, I'd be putting it on a March spec update, or maybe latest June spec update.
I think you're probably right. It would probably be better for them to get an update out as soon as possible. But seeing as this could be kind of a minor change in that better cameras and better processor, I would rather them wait till later just so you can get the best possible ones for the year and not have to wait another year for the A14X or whatever. But I think either way it's going to be a slam dunk because iPad Pros are, I mean, even in their current form, are as powerful as you could ever need for an iOS device currently.
Yeah, there's certainly nothing that leaves me wanting in terms of performance on my iPad Pro.
Some interesting comments I've seen are that the triple camera setup might not be identical to the iPhone 11, and they might be trading a telephoto or ultra-wide lens for a time-of-flight sensor instead.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me what that means as well?
It's used a lot for room mapping, like 3D space mapping, and it has a lot of applications in more realistic AR and also just 3D scanning if there's a reason that you'd want to do that. So if that's the case, and they're putting a time-of-flight sensor on the iPad and on the iPhone, probably, they may want to get the iPad out as soon as possible to play into whatever AR features they're putting in iOS 14. So they have like a device to demo it on.
Okay.
So I could see them releasing early for that reason as well.
There are certain trades that would find that very useful as well, because like people who work in the design industry, like interior design and all the kind of slightly related to that industries, and where they go out to someone's house or business or whatever and map out what's currently there, with a pencil and paper and a ruler probably in the past, but now with an iPad, an iPad camera and AR, and having more options to do that automatically. Imagine just waving the iPad around the room and having it fully mapped out for you. I don't know if that's exactly what this sensor would allow, but it sounds useful for that sort of application.
Yeah, I believe Google was doing a project like this, like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. They had some kind of phone demo with a time-of-flight sensor in it. But I don't remember what it was called now. But this technology's been around for a long time, so I'm kind of excited to see what Apple's done with it, and hopefully we'll be applying to some Apple glasses in the next year or two.
Keep dreaming.
You don't think that's going to happen?
I don't think it's ever going to leave the not the drawing board, because I'm sure they've got physical prototypes, but I'm skeptical of ever being a product in the market.
For no other reason, just how adamant Tim Cook has been since becoming CEO, how AR is the future. I feel like Apple's going to push really hard to get a product out there.
Okay. They are pretty good at miniaturization, and that's, I guess, the main hurdle when it comes to these AR glasses.
Yeah. Man. I just really want it to happen, so maybe it's a little bit of bias, but I think it's going to happen.
And so the last topic for the day is that there was a maxed out $52,000 Mac Pro review posted by, what was it again? Infinity Design?
Infinity Labs.
Infinity Labs. So this was, I guess, the top Mac Pro article of the week. Although I have some complaints, as we already mentioned. A chunk of it was dedicated to a keyboard, which wasn't even an Apple keyboard. So a little bit unusual, but I guess the fact that it was a maxed out Mac Pro meant it was pretty close to the top post on the subreddit.
Yeah. He did have a couple interesting things to say. He talked about, there's a lot of assumption that the dual MPX graphics cards that Apple's shipping were kind of going to be seen by an operating system as a single graphics card. But that's not the case at all. Games that aren't optimized for multiple graphics cards only use a single GPU on the card, and Windows itself sees a dual GPU card as 2 separate GPUs if you're booting into Windows. So that was new news. I mean, to that extent, he talked about how the Mac Pro is going to be really bad for gaming because the single core performance in the CPU is very poor, at least in the 28 core variant. And you're only going to be using one GPU unless your game is optimized to use multiple, which is almost none. But I don't think anyone's buying this computer to play games in the first place. So,
yeah, there might be a very, very small percentage, but yeah, typically not. I mean, especially since you're probably going to be putting Windows on it and doing it that way. And imagine buying a maxed out Mac Pro and putting Windows on it as your primary OS.
Yeah, you're wasting a lot of money if you bought a Mac Pro to put Windows on it.
A few other bits and bobs that I heard about the Mac Pro, not just from this video, but in the week since we last talked about it. All the cables have to be unplugged to get the case off. That's a little bit different from previous Mac Pros. Certainly different from yours, where you can just open the side, can't you? Cables in.
Right. Yeah, that's set right from mine. The 2013 model also had to have everything unplugged.
Okay. Apparently the latch on top doesn't exactly move nicely. It's kind of like grating metal on metal to be able to open it. And also the case
I've heard that, yeah.
doesn't really open like you'd expect an Apple case to open. It's a little bit finicky, a little bit janky to actually remove the case from the chassis. Also heard that there are like no cables in this computer. Basically everything is just contact connections.
Right,
which
is,
is
for the most part.
Yeah, which is unusual. I think previous Mac Pros, I don't have a lot of experience with them, but there were cables hidden somewhat, but they're definitely there.
Yeah. There's a few. The main places I'm thinking about there being cables in like my older Mac Pro is plugged into the CD drive, which isn't an issue anymore. And the only other cables that I can think of are the antenna cables, which you're going to have antennas no matter what. So those are still in the current Mac Pro, but maybe built into the chassis in some way. I'm not sure.
Maybe it uses the entire top case as like a massive antenna.
Maybe something like that. That doesn't sound like something Apple wouldn't do.
Here's a question. Does the new Mac Pro have built-in speakers?
It does. It actually has a really nice built-in speaker with like a subwoofer.
Wow, that's nice.
So I forget what channel it was. Snazzy Labs did a complete disassembly of a Mac Pro, and it found an extremely like nice internal speaker.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So.
Not quite as what's the word I'm looking for? Not quite as cool, I guess, as pairing a Mac Pro with some, what are they, Harman Kardon sound sticks?
Oh, the sound sticks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the classic thing you gotta pair with an old Apple computer. That's all I ever saw in the Apple stores. So I actually did record all the upgrades I did on the Mac Pro. And if I ever sit down and put them together in some, understandable format, I'll put it on my channel.
Please do. Have there been any updates or improvements since we last spoke?
I don't think so. I bought the original iSight camera just to stick on there because it matches the design language, and I thought it looked good.
Yeah.
But that's I think that was done since the last show, but I'm not sure anymore.
Yeah, I haven't heard about it. I don't think you've told me about it.
So it's a great VGA quality camera that plugs in through FireWire 400, so I had to get a special adapter to even plug it in.
That's right, because the last of the 2010 Mac Pros only have FireWire 800, right?
Right, yeah, the last generation of Mac Pro only had 800.
The last tower generation.
Right. The last generation have FireWire at all.
Yeah, right.
So...
I'm still very tempted to get a Mac Pro.
It was a really fun project, and it's worked so well that I've kind of turned it into my primary computer. Even though I've got it was like a $4,000 build from a couple years ago with at Ryzen 1800X and 1080 Ti and all that. I don't need it anymore because my Mac Pro is so good.
Yeah.
It's not on the same level, but it's Mac OS, which I like a lot more, and it does everything I could expect it to do as well as I would hope. So
the part that's dissuading me is that I've got an iPad Pro that would probably be faster than any Mac Pro I put together.
That's true.
The only thing I'm lacking is like a nice big screen.
Yeah, just get yourself a Pro Display XDR and plug your iPad into it.
Oh, and then look at it at like the 4:3 aspect ratio, whatever it is. That would it'd be a thing of nightmares.
So,
actually, I think that's probably my number one request for iPad right now is to support an external monitor at the external monitor's native resolution.
I wonder how difficult that would be to do. You're basically asking iOS to scale to any screen size, which is not something it's ever had to do in the past.
Yep.
So even if it was just like apps could support it, like maybe a video player could play at the native resolution, and if like a
video players already can.
Photoshop app. Oh, can they?
Yep.
Okay. Well, maybe if like Adobe wanted to put the extra time into having Photoshop support any screen size, and then it would show just correctly on external display or something.
It sounds good, but I think that feature existed or does exist already, that apps can support external monitors at different resolutions, and none of them do, really.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think it's got to be built into iPad OS, sorry.
Yeah.
To really be useful.
That's fair.
Because imagine if you're like using it day to day and switching between apps, you're like going to the home screen, opening an app, you'd have the external monitor like constantly pinging between different resolutions, and not all of them are fast at doing that.
Right. Man, that would make development a little bit trickier. You basically have to try every like aspect ratio or resolution of different monitors and make sure it looks good on all of them, and it wouldn't be fun.
Yeah.
But if Mac OS developers can do it, I'm sure iPad OS developers can too.
Aren't they one and the same nowadays?
Now with Swift UI.
Anything else to add on the Mac Pro?
Not that I can think of.
No. Not until mine arrives. When I win Lotto. Keep dreaming. I'm James VDM on Reddit and Twitter.
And I'm Jelly Woot on Reddit and Twitter.